Every lesson is a lyric in the universal song. Oh, the lessons of the journey, I'll weave them in my song.
Hello, and welcome to Lessons of the Journey, where we discuss the stuff we actually needed to learn in school with Coach Jen and Coach Nicole.
Aloha. Today, we are talking about conflict. This is something that is going to take more than one episode to work through. We're calling this series the Conflict Code, and we are going to dive deep into the tension that I think most of us fear and the growth that we often miss because of it. Nicole and I believe that conflict is not the end of connection. It's actually an opening, a doorway into something deeper, whether it's an argument with a partner or a standoff at work, like your coworker sucks, or even the war that nobody sees, which is inside of our own head. It touches all of us. Conflict is an interwoven part of life. But what if it didn't have to break us? What if it could actually build us? So in this series, we want to explore the psychology of conflict, the emotional toll that it takes on us, and science-backed strategies to help us navigate the conflict with clarity, courage, and care.
Yeah, from the patterns we repeat in relationships to the moments that test our voice and our values. We're going to give you tools, insights, and maybe even a little peace of mind. Fingers crossed. So whether you avoid conflict like the plague or feel like it follows you everywhere, you are in the right place. Let's decode conflict and rewrite the way we show up in the hardest moments in life. Let's start with the definition of conflict. Jen, what have you got for us?
Okay, this is one of those fun ones in dictionary.com where it's a verb, it's a noun, it's a whole bunch of things, and it applies to all of us. So as a verb used without an object, the definition to come into collision or disagreement, be contradictory, at variance, or in opposition. Number 2 is to fight or contend, or also do battle. What I like better is it as a noun and how it applies. A fight, battle, or struggle, especially a prolonged struggle or strife. Number 2, controversy or quarrel. A discord of action, feeling, or effect. Antagonism or opposition as of interests or principles. And then way down at the bottom in regard to psychiatry, they call it a mental struggle arising from opposing demands or impulses. What are we connecting with, Nicole?
That's a lot. It sounds like conflict should be 5 different words because that was like 5 different things. You know what? Collision or disagreement, contradictory. I'm like, that's me. Hi, I'm contradictory. Fight, battle. It all sounds similar to me. I didn't feel like it was disjointed. All those definitions do feel like conflict to me. Obviously, we understand. I would almost say big conflict, little conflict. I mean, they literally call wars conflicts now. And we have our own conflicts that can be little. It can be in the moment and momentary, and you have a conflict with someone else or even in your own head, or we have these long, prolonged conflicts. So I think all of it makes sense.
Yeah, I think in this case, in the series that we're going to be working on, it's going to lean more towards the psychiatry portion of it. So of course we can have a conflict in our schedule, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the mental struggle that arises from opposing demands or impulses. So I think that we stick to that one in regard to what we're going to talk about today. Are we in agreement there?
I'm good with that.
No conflict between us, Nicole?
Not right at this moment.
Okay, so let's talk about the anatomy of conflict and what it really is and why it's actually not always a bad thing. Understanding that bad, air quotes, bad and good and all of that in between is subjective. It's what we give to it. Understanding conflict as it's not always a bad thing. It's not inherently negative. I know a majority of people that I know are anti-conflict, no conflict, don't want to get in front of it, don't want to be a part of it. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad. And actually what conflict does is it signals growth and it tells us more about our unmet needs, or if there's a misalignment between the two people involved in said conflict. So I think that the ability to reframe conflict as an opportunity to understand deeper truths can actually reduce our resistance to the idea of conflict being bad. I think it's a catalyst for growth. And what does that mean? It means that it gives us an opportunity. So there's actually research that goes with this. It suggests that conflict is often driven by core identity needs. This is Daniel W. Shapiro, Harvard program on negotiation. And it really talks about autonomy, what we need for ourselves, appreciation, affiliation, status, and role. What are we doing here in this piece of it? When these parts of us are threatened, that's when a conflict arises. And we don't always see it that way. It's usually like, you did something to me and now we are in conflict. I think that's the way a majority of us see it. If we're able to have the awareness, if we're able to see that conflict is not a threat, it's actually a signal that something in our core, something inside of us, our needs are being unmet in that moment. And if we can approach it that way, it becomes more constructive. And I think that's a good thing.
I think this is huge. When I first thought about the concept of conflict not being a bad thing, I mean, for me, I think of conflict as the fights I get into. I get into fights and it's a conflict. And to me, that feels horrible. It feels bad. It's usually with somebody I love and care about. And it's like, oh, this feels awful. Mm-hmm. Yet when I looked at this, I said, okay, wait, it's not always bad. You know, there have been times when I recall having a fight with my husband and us coming out the other side better for it.
Yeah.
I've never focused on the better for it. I shouldn't say never. I've started focusing on the better for it. But it's such a mindset shift. And I don't think it's easy to make this mindset shift. I just think the fact that we're talking about it is such a good thing, because I do feel like conflict is often perceived as a negative. Even when you say, I have a conflict in my schedule, well, that's something I have to figure out. That's a problem I have to solve. It is not a positive. So I think this is really interesting when we start talking about this.
You know, conflict, it's all of life. Absolutely, we needed to have been taught this in school. You hear us talk so much about as the consciousness of society has elevated. It's a really cool thing that this is so much more focused on for children than it ever was when you and I were growing up. They never would have taught conflict resolution in school. It was your ABCs, reading, writing, arithmetic. And there was really nothing that I can recall about when it happens, not if it happens, when it happens, because it's a natural part of being human.
Yeah.
That we're all walking around with our own things going on inside. I'm going to point everybody back to the 4 agreements. We just don't have any idea what's going on with anybody else. So when we kind of understand that you had your thing and I had my thing and we didn't talk about it, so they could be opposing and now we have a conflict and we need to figure it out. The ability to move through that confidently is definitely a life skill. So hopefully we can help everybody first understand what it is, understand that an approach can be different, and then what's going on inside of us, and then how we can, I guess, make it better.
I like what you talked about with the core identity needs, because I'm all about the value system. What do I value and knowing what I value? But we all have our core identity, the things that we go, hey, this is important to me. I've got a 3-year-old in the house that's literally learning autonomy, how to control her own body and her own things. It's so interesting to have this be like, oh, wait, are these things being bothered in me? I mean, I've never looked at it that way. Is my status being affected? Is my role being affected? That's an interesting question. I think that that's something worth looking at. When this happens, obviously this creates a war inside, right? We have to manage that inner turmoil. Honestly, if nothing else about conflict was taught to us in school, I would have liked to have been this. You're going to feel crappy inside. And here's what's happening. Yeah, and it's going normal to go away. Everybody feels it, right? Because sometimes I feel like that inner turmoil is just, it's so hard. You know, we talk about the fight, flight, freeze response. There's a lot of the F's, the flop, the fawn. There's many of them. The amygdala being hijacked, like literally the amygdala in your brain is hijacking the rest of your body, and specifically your prefrontal cortex, which is your logic brain. So you lose your logic, and understanding just the concept that your logic goes away and that your brain's been hijacked and that that's normal. Is a huge thing. So I didn't know this. Amygdala hijacking was actually coined by Daniel Goleman, and it explains how that emotional response can override that rational thought during conflict. Just recognizing this so we can pause instead of reacting. I mean, I'm such a reactionary person. When somebody pisses me off, man, I'm like, go for the throat right away. I want to get in there. I want to get it solved and move forward. And that's the mistake that I made.
Yeah. Well, it's a protective measure. It's such a natural thing for a human to want to protect themselves.
Yes.
Especially when we feel threatened. If our logic is turned off, we're like,
yeah.
Protect mode. I'm threatened. And we do this in our house now. A lion is not chasing me. I am safe. I am okay. And we have to sit in that moment and
take a second.
It's hard, y'all. Yeah. It is hard.
Well, and it's really hard when you're a fighter and you're with a freezer or a flight person, because flight doesn't actually have to be physical flight. It can be emotional flight. They can just go away. And you're like, where are you? I want to fight and you're not here. This misalignment, which we're going to talk about probably in our next episode, but just being aware of what's happening with your brain and saying, okay, I need a second.
Absolutely.
And we have all the emotional responses. So conflict triggers fear, anger, shame. Acknowledging that emotional storm without judgment is the key.
Ooh. Say that one again.
Acknowledging the emotional storm without judgment, which, by the way, fear, shame, anger, if you can acknowledge the emotional storm without judgment, you will probably avoid the shame piece of it, because the shame is what comes from the judgment. You may have fear, you may have anger, and just knowing that that is all normal and okay, and normalizing, right? This is what we're talking about when we say we should have learned this in school. If it had been normalized for us, we would say, well, yeah, I'm mad because I'm a fight person. And by the way, you don't have to be fight, flight, freeze every time. We can do different responses at different times or be combinations of them. So getting away from letting that fear and anger or frustration or whatever the emotions are turn to shame by judging it. Yeah, I'll say it one more time. Acknowledge the emotional storm within without judgment. Next step. Okay, that was level 1. Let's go to level 2. Self-awareness. Actually asking yourself, why is this bothering me?
Yes.
And what part of me feels threatened? Now, I have to tell you, Jen, when I read this, I was like, okay, first of all, I'm so in my space of hijacked that I'm judging it all. And then I'm judging it again when it's done. And then I'm not ever asking myself this question until it's later. You may have to start by saying, why did that bother me? And what part of me felt threatened in an afterthought, to train yourself to be able to do this. Because I know for me, when I'm in the midst of intense conflict, and I think it's an intensity thing for me. Sometimes it's very intense, sometimes it's mild. But if I'm in an intense conflict, I don't know that I have access to this tool at this point.
Oh, that's out the window. Are you kidding me? That the lion is actually chasing me in this moment. No, y'all, we're not sitting here like, so this is what we do.
This is how we do it, and we do it perfect.
No. Are you kidding me? This is such a regular practice. This comes with actual, intentional, on purpose, necessary awareness. And are we going to get it right every time? No, absolutely not. It's going to take a long time before we're like, oh, hey, I think I maybe did that one. And is it going to happen the intense moments that Nicole's talking about? Absolutely not. You're going to give yourself a high five, or your person a high five, or whatever that looks like when you go, look it, we just had a little minor conflict and we didn't bite each other's heads off and stop talking for 3 days. Go us. We do that in our house now. We high five on the little conflicts so that we can reinforce, right?
That's awesome.
Rewire.
I love that.
It's because it got too intense. It's because it got to a point that it was no longer serving. And relationships are hard. Long-term relationships is the hardest thing I've ever done. This is not even a kid conflict, which arises with toddlers every damn day.
Yeah.
This is like the inside your house. Clearly, you're not going to go give the person at your work or the nail tech, because I had a recent thing, a high five when you resolve that conflict, right?
You might.
Maybe. I got a hug. I was like, can I have a hug? I'm so sorry. But in our house, we do that now. We do high fives because we are so proud of ourselves that little thing that used to turn into a way bigger thing no longer happens. But I tell you, it's been years of practice.
I think this can be used so many different ways. So this self-awareness of asking, why is this bothering me? Because I can say later, okay, why did that bother me? The most conflicts I have are in my home. So it's my son and my husband. And it's because they're the adults around me most. My husband, now we're at the point where I can sit down later and say, hey, this is what was bothering me. This is why we fought. Or, well, part of me felt threatened. And I've never termed it that way, but I like that. This is what felt threatened in me. Because in the future, I could actually see my husband while we're in the middle of a conflict saying, is there something feeling threatened in you?
Man, Tim's awareness is just on point.
It is. I'm telling you, it's amazing. So I think it can be used in so many different ways is kind of my point. If you're listening and you're going, hell no, I can't do that. Well, I'm with you. I can't do that either yet, but I can pull into it in the future. That's an important thing. The other thing is cognitive dissonance. So we've heard this term a million times now. This is one of those buzzwords, and I didn't write the definition, so I'm going to look it up. The definition is a psychological state of discomfort or unease that occurs when an individual holds conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes, or when their actions contradict their beliefs. So let me give you a little example. Nicole gets totally pissed off and she becomes incredibly unkind. And a value for me is to be kind in the way that I show up. That in itself will create absolute cognitive dissonance in me because I will go, you were not kind. Then I'm mad at me because I didn't show up in a value that I think is important. Mm-hmm. And it actually can create anxiety. If we can take that and deconstruct it, we can reduce the anxiety and we can lead it to clearer decisions in conversations or conflicts. I actually had a conflict with my son yesterday, and I realized a couple things. First of all, we were setting ourselves up for disaster in that we were choosing to play pickleball as partners. And I don't know how to put it any other way. We just should never be pickleball partners. Our personalities just clash. He tries to give me advice. He steals my balls all the time. And I'm like, let me play. So it's disaster, first of all. Like, why are you doing this? And at the end, like we left and I'm driving home with him and my husband in the car. And it was so weird and awkward in the car. We got home and I just texted him and I said, I love you and I don't want to play pickleball with you anymore. And I don't think you want to play with me. And I don't think we should be partners anymore, but I don't want this to affect any other part of our lives because I love you. And that means everything to me. And I said, I'm sorry it went that way. And he texted me back and he's like, I'm sorry it went that way too. And I agree with you. And it was like, okay, see, problem solved.
Yep, done.
Because I didn't get all freaked out. I just kind of went, okay, you know what? Let's figure out what's going on here. I want an amazing relationship with my son. I want to be able to play with my son. But that doesn't work, and I have to be okay with that.
I want to touch on, because I love what you said about the cognitive dissonance. I actually learned it, and now it's all coming together for me. In regard to cognitive dissonance, what's making a lot of sense is you said the inner conflict that stems from holding two conflicting beliefs or values or attitudes. The way that I learned it was actually in regard to relationship, not necessarily with an intimate partner, just a relationship with another person. Mm-hmm. So the way that we see ourselves and then the way that somebody else sees us don't necessarily match up. So there's a distance between who I think I am and who you see me as. Mm-hmm. If somehow something comes up, you make a statement, and I'm like, no, that she doesn't see me. She doesn't know me. She doesn't understand my belief, my value. There's that distance there. That's where the conflict is. And understanding that piece, know myself the best. I wake up with myself every day. This thing happened and there's a distance between the belief, value, attitude and this person's belief, value, attitude. That's when the conflict arises. That might be my takeaway already. I love that this all came together from what you were saying, whereas I learned it about two people and where the conflict comes in. And you're talking about how the inner conflict can stem from these two things, which makes a ton of sense to me too. So thank you for putting all of that together for me.
Yeah. And I always learned it from like, I have a belief in a certain way of life, but then like I'll go vote against the belief. And that's a dissonance. That's the way I learned it, was that you make an action that doesn't support what you actually believe, or it's called cognitive dissonance. And so often we're not aware that we're doing that. So it's becoming aware of it. That's interesting. I'm no expert on it by any means. I'm learning about a lot of this stuff too, but that's the one that you hear about a lot lately is the cognitive dissonance. So we had our episodes on stress, but these are just a couple of quick tools. So mindfulness-based stress reduction. MBSR, research from John Kabat-Zinn, shows mindfulness can reduce anxiety and improve emotional regulation in conflict. Practices like journaling, deep breathing, or walking to process. How many episodes have we done, Jen, where the answer is journaling, breathing, and walking?
I tell you, something that actually sticks out to me just because it's the platform that I really work on practicing every day is I would add in practicing the 4 agreements is being mindful. It helps with all of these things. Yeah. Knowing what the agreements are and then working through them. I mean, we can't go, I'm in conflict now, I'm going to journal about it. We can't necessarily do that.
No.
We can't necessarily go, okay, so I'm in conflict right now. I'm going to sit here in front of you and take my deep breaths and you're just going to wait for me. But we can't always.
Wait, yeah, we can. Yeah, you can. Yeah,
we
you
can't
can.
always.
Yeah, you can. I need to step away and take a moment.
Right. That's a walking to process or stepping away. But however, when was the last time you became in conflict and you were like, oh, I'm going to be mindful and walk away? You were like, no, son of a bitch, we're going right now. We're going to have this fight and we're going to.
Yes. And maybe sometimes, and we're going to talk about walking away.
Yes. Which is necessary. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying that there are ways to practice in conflict to be able to stress reduce mindfully when you don't have other options available to you. Not that they're not available to you physically, just that when you're flooded, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute, when you're flooded, you don't have all of your tools available.
No, agreed. And I think all of these things, journaling, deep breathing, walking, that's not generally in that moment. Those are practices to do to reduce stress overall. Because let's be honest, if your stress is high, how's your conflict?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, no, my conflict's great when I'm highly stressed. I'm fantastic. Like I'm the best at fighting. And when your stress is low, how are you in conflict? Probably a whole lot calmer, probably a whole lot more rational, and probably a whole lot less likely to have that amygdala hijacked.
Absolutely.
So these are like overall tools.
Okay.
The other thing is self-distancing techniques. So studies show that thinking about your experience in the third person, what does Nicole need right now? Can reduce emotional reactivity. I was like, oh, wait. So I have to go back to my questions and be like, what is bothering Nicole right now? What part of Nicole feels threatened? Now, that may sound funny.
Yep.
You know what, though? It also sounds legit to me. I've never tried this. This was across an IDEX study in 2011, but I'm going to try. I'm like third partying me. That could be interesting.
That is interesting. You know, it really makes me think about just raising kids because when we're distant, I was like, oh, what does my child need right now in this moment? And it's easy for us to remove the intensity from it because we can see from a third party situation. We're floating above, we're at the 30,000 feet and they're in the middle of it. And we get to say, what does my child need right now? And it's easy. I've never applied that to myself. I love this.
When you say, what does Nicole need right now? I'm talking to the inner child.
Yes.
Like that question literally takes me to my inner child. It softens me just saying it out loud. What does Nicole need right now? I'm like, it's the little version of me. And I think it softens it. I think this has power. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. When I first read it, I was like, I don't know about that one. And then I said it out loud. I was like, oh, I can feel the power there.
Just hearing you say that out loud, I thought, oh, little Jen needs a hug. That was me. I needed more hugs because I had these big feelings and that's what I needed. You said that and I went, oh, I need a hug. In conflict because I'm feeling threatened or I'm feeling less than. Yeah, I needed a hug. Another takeaway. Whoo, you're killing me today.
We're getting a lot of good stuff today. Another thing that I want to talk about regarding the inner turmoil is just avoidance versus integrity. So sometimes, not all of us, I have known these people. Sometimes we avoid conflict to avoid discomfort, but that can lead to resentment or inauthenticity.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because I knew about the resentment, but I was like, inauthenticity and integrity. Okay, you got me there.
Got me.
Yeah. Hey, I don't want to have the difficult conversation. I mean, there's literally books on it. Have the uncomfortable conversation. And if we know how to have the conversation, which we'll talk about some of that, I think these conversations really do help us line up our own integrity and our own authentic selves.
You know, studies show that in intimate long-term relationships, the more you hold on to, the unhappier you are long-term. We hear so often, I just didn't want to have that fight. Oh, but I love that it shoves down that authenticity because we don't want to rock the boat. That was a thing from the past. Don't rock the boat, just kind of all cruise along. But the studies actually show that the happiest long-term couples bring it up immediately, get over it immediately because they're there to work together. Oh, you know, that was a bummer. I'm sorry you felt that way. I didn't know. We didn't mean to do that. Let's move on. It festers when it's just rotting inside of you and it just, that's where that resentment comes from. It makes total sense that would then lead to inauthenticity. We want most from our person. We want to feel seen and heard.
Yep.
But if we're not showing up as our true authentic selves, how is that ever going to happen? I see absolutely that it would stem from things like this.
Yeah. And seen and heard is because it's safe. And do you feel safe if you're in an inauthentic relationship? If it's not showing up, both of you, if you're holding things back, that's not safety. And I don't know about you, but my assumption is if I was holding something back, so would the other person be, because I have a tendency to make the assumption that the same things are happening on the opposite side. By the way, incorrect assumption makes an ass out of just me, but that's something that I know I do. So it would make me feel like there was authenticity missing in my relationship, and that would make me feel unsafe.
Yeah. So what do? We need to speak our truth. It's so necessary. It's also so difficult sometimes because it takes an essence of vulnerability. And there are ways to stand your ground with grace. I think that really in application, it's assertiveness without aggression. We can stand our ground. We can speak our boundaries with grace and not be aggressive. This is a lot about emotional intelligence. It correlates with better conflict resolution because emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and use your emotions effectively. So, what are the components of this? First of all, self-awareness. You and I speak to that all the time. It's mindfulness, self-awareness. What's going on with me? Self-regulation. This is huge. These are the things we're teaching our children that maybe we never learned. Self-regulation. What do I do with all of these intense feelings inside of me? How do I take this elevated emotion and get my logic back? How do I reduce that intensity? Mind you, self-regulation is not to be confused with suppression. We're not having these feelings and then shoving them aside. We're not getting rid of them. We're not like, this doesn't feel good. I don't want you anymore. We're talking about recognizing I am having this feeling and I would like to not have this feeling. So how do I help myself settle down? I'm doing this literally every day with my boys. Empathy. So emotional intelligence also has to do with empathy. Empathy for yourself, first and foremost. And then when you have empathy with yourself, you're that much more easily able to give it to somebody else in those moments as well. And social skills. You've all heard the ability to read a room or read the social situation that's happening in those moments. So all of those components go into having emotional intelligence. And I've certainly run into people where you can see right off the bat, you're like, oh, your emotional intelligence is significantly lacking, and whether this moment or all of your life, this is not going to work. So I have to have extra emotional intelligence to be able to move through these scenarios comfortably. I think that it's important to note that being emotionally intelligent does not mean being soft. It means being smart about when and how to make the move, stand firm, negotiate what that situation looks like, first and foremost with yourself, then giving yourself the ability to do that with whatever is going on in front of you.
This is such a great point. I just want to say, I love that this is broken down into those spaces because I have always looked at emotional intelligence, again, another buzzword right now. And I've been like, well, I'm very emotionally intelligent because I'm super self-aware. I am very, very self-aware. I'm also pretty good at empathy. I've got pretty good social skills, but I got to tell you, self-regulation for me is tough. breaking it down into these 4 is making it easier for me to understand. It's kind of like, you remember when we did the life wheel, and it's like, oh, my life is great. I'm an 8 out of 10. But then when you break it down into different parts of your life, you go, oh, okay, now I can focus on what really self-regulation. Thank you. I think that's going to be one of my takeaways, because that's something I need to work on, and understanding that it's different than self-awareness. Separating them for me is huge. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? Nobody ever taught us this, Nicole, especially when we were growing up. And it is a buzz right now because of this whole gentle parenting, because of your child's feelings matter. I can tell you that growing up, my feelings did not matter. Go to your room, get over it. You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about, right? Like this whole oh shit, feelings are evil, right? Nobody ever said your feelings are bad. But that's the feeling that I had growing up. Your feelings don't matter. They're actually really inconvenient. You need to go have them away from me. Nobody ever taught me how to self-regulate, how to still feel like a valuable person through all of my feelings. And that's the thing that we're shoving into our kids now, me anyway, especially because I'm raising men. I think it's so necessary to teach these boys, teach all kids how to self-regulate. That there's actually a way to do it. And that keeps us smooth, even.
You're talking self-regulation. You're talking about processing through emotions.
Yes.
Not suppressing emotions, but actually processing through emotions. Nobody ever taught me that.
No.
Wait, emotions. So stuff them or rage them out.
Yes.
That's what I was taught. Okay, so I wasn't taught it. I just could fight it out. I could push it out of me into somebody else's face, or I could press it down within me. But how do I process it and let myself actually spend some time feeling it?
Yes.
You feel that. It's okay that you feel that. You get to feel that. And guess what? Nicole gets to feel that.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. We do what was modeled for us. And that's why it's so important to change the narrative. I'm an older mom. I really, really want to make sure that these kids know that, number one, it's natural, it's normal, it's part of being human. Number two, this is how you do it. This is how you regulate. And just for those in the back, your kids don't just come out of you knowing how to do it. They will learn it from you. It is on you to sit there with them. I've heard it said like this: they need to borrow your calm because their brains are not fully developed. So it's not on us to lose our shit when the kids are losing their shit. They literally don't have developed brains yet. We have to be the adults in the room, be like, oh, okay, you're freaking out. I don't agree with your freak out, but I'm not freaking out. And I'm going to show you how safe it is to sit here with that. Your feelings are okay. I'm not going to tell you to shut your face because we're going to process through this. And the only way they're going to know that is by doing it with you over and over and over again. I think that that's such an important thing, that we really could change an entire generation moving into a better and safer world if we could teach our kids how to do this.
I would agree with that. I would also add that you're modeling. Are you saying, hey, I feel X right now and I'm just sitting in my emotions so I can process through this? Are you telling your children that? Because then they're going to go, oh, look.
Yeah.
Mom does it too. Gigi does it too. Daddy does it too. Everybody does it too. They're seeing that, and that it's okay as an adult to do it as well.
Necessary. Yes. And that just came into the third person for me again. I have actually said, Mom's feeling a little frustrated right now. I need to take a minute. I'm going to take some breaths. And that's that third person. So it's not little Jen, but it's mom in the third person. It feels safer to do that with the kids because they're so much less judgmental. But have I done that in my intimate relationships? Have I done that in friendships? I can't say that that's the way that I functioned. I really like that third party thing.
I know. Isn't it bizarre? Because when you first hear it, you're kind of like, that's kind of dumb. But then you do it and you're like, oh, wait, there's power in that.
Yeah.
It's so wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like such a good takeaway.
I think it is. Well, and also in those moments, it helps to know what your non-negotiables are. What are my values? What is it that I feel is being threatened? To be able to clarify what values or needs you are having, especially in those moments, it's totally essential. So you don't back down in the conflict about what is necessary to happen for you. Another thing that we could all practice is to listen first and speak later.
No, I want to talk. I want to be the only one to talk. I want to be the one to talk, and I want you to hear me. I don't want to listen.
No, and that's the thing is nobody's hearing each other. We're all screaming on top of each other.
Sorry,
Nobody's
I had to do it.
Heard. I hear you. I know. You're not
I'm
the
listening.
only one. To let the other person, and I keep coming back to intimate relationships, but conflicts exist everywhere. So the ability to let the other person feel heard. That means active listening. That means maybe repeating what you're understanding. Then when you truly have processed that, then you can present your position more effectively. That's going to lessen that gap, that conflict gap that we were talking about earlier when we were talking about cognitive dissonance. We did a boundaries episode. Your own boundaries, you communicate them as a respectful thing to show you. It is necessary and important for you to feel safe in said relationship. It's important to communicate your limits respectfully. It is about a mutual respect. It is not about control. It is not the ultimatum. You will do this or I will. It's not that. It's, hey, with me, this is the way it goes. I don't really tolerate much else. And there's a safe way to do that. And bear in mind that that is respect. If somebody doesn't receive that well from you, you then get to decide what to do with that information. I think that that's an important point as well. Knowing those values are really important.
The listen first and speak later. And I know if you just take a beat and say something like what I hear you saying is, and not make it about that responding. Yeah. That one's a hard pill to swallow for me. Really hear the other person. I'm getting so much better at that in my regular life. Yet in conflict, I still am so bad at that. I'm working on it. I really am. The listening, I'm trying to hear you. For me, I think the way I'm working on it, because in the moment it still feels real hard for me, but I'm trying to do that as the time goes. It's an hour later and I go, okay, now I need to listen and respect what that person was saying and take it forward from there, because I'm nowhere near that point where I can do it in the midst of conflict. Man, I wish I want to be that person. That's my goal.
I've had a lot of practice in the coaching realm and just different leadership forums that I've taken part in, and the context and the content that I've consumed and my ability to practice. But I tell you, the hardest point I have, and this is triggers from childhood that I'm constantly working on, it's those intimate relationships that I have the trouble with. I get so defensive. I get so immediately, I don't attack, I shut down. Not in my regular life. I go out, I'm not afraid of conflict in any way. I understand that, more than likely it's a miscommunication and it depends on how intense we're all feeling about it. It's inside my house that I have the hardest time. It's that intimate relationship that I have the hardest time. It's feeling vulnerable, and my ability to handle it healthily and constructively is not always there. So much so, Nicole, we got a pulse oximeter.
Yes.
To understand where our heart rates are going.
Whoa.
And you don't do this unless you are intensely working on your relationship. We have been there and we're like, I'm flooded. I have to go. look, my finger says that I have to.
You're like, now I got to walk away.
Yeah.
Hey, my watch checks my heart rate. I can set warnings, I think, on there that'll be like beep, beep, too high or whatever.
It brings comedy to conflict, I'll tell you that. I'll be like, wait, I need my pulse ox. Hold on.
You're like, let me put on my pieces of armor. Let's talk about some proven strategies for handling conflict in a healthy and constructive way.
Yes.
First, before we get into the 5 that we have, I want to talk about new way versus old way responses, but assertiveness training. It's interesting because I always thought of the term assertiveness training and said, well, I don't need that. I'm super assertive. But you know what? I need it. We all need it. Alberti and Emmons in 1970s, they actually help individuals express needs with aggression. One of their techniques, I actually think this is brilliant, the broken record technique. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, well, I do that. I repeat myself. Well, it's calmly repeating your stance.
Calmly. Keyword here.
You mean it's not getting louder and louder and louder because I'm not being heard? Because that I've done many times. But I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not doing the broken record. But the broken record technique is calmly repeating your stance can be effective without escalation.
Mm-hmm.
I was missing a key component, but I just thought that was interesting. So the 5 proven strategies for handling conflict in a healthy, constructive way. Number 1, use I statements, not you accusations. I'm sure we've heard this before.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it work? It reduces defensiveness and it keeps the focus on your experience.
Yes.
Example, instead of you never listen, say, I feel unheard when I'm interrupted. I also think this is a great strategy simply because it makes you stop for a moment and think of how to reword it.
Now, that's not, I feel unheard when you interrupt me. That's not where we're at.
Thank you for the clarity, Jen. Yes, I love clarity. That's funny. I think you're just not supposed to use the word you.
Yeah.
I think if you avoid the word you, then it's like, okay, I have to put it on me.
Yes.
I feel unheard when I'm interrupted. And you know what? It's more true too, because if you were to say, I feel unheard when you interrupt me, I would feel unheard no matter who interrupts me.
Correct.
So let's say it as it is. And
Yes.
I think that's a really important one. So that's the using I statements, not you accusations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here we're talking about take a break when you're flooded. So why it works. Emotional flooding, when we get to that fight or flight response, hijacks your ability to think clearly. We already talked about that. Tip, pause the conversation and say, I need 20 minutes to calm down so I can really hear you. That's a great way to say it.
Yes.
I need 20 minutes to calm down so I can really hear you.
Yes.
I mean, who's going to say no to that?
Well, sometimes me when I really want to get this. Nope, you get your ass back here. We're figuring this out right now.
But is it actually said that way? And not just I need 20 minutes to calm down, period. So I can really hear you.
Yes. Yeah. Because when we were flooded, and so this is backed by the Gottmans. The Gottmans are relationship scientists. I've actually gone through extensive Gottman training, not as a coach, as a coachee, somebody who needed the Gottman experience. And they go so far as to say, not just 20 minutes away doing something that has nothing to do with the conflict. So go read a magazine, let your brain get away from that conflict. So it's not 20 minutes away to go sit and stew and think of all the things you want to say when you come back. It's not that. It's something that will remove your mind from the current experience so that when you come back, you are more free flowing with your ability to hear. And the research says at least 20 minutes, because anything less than that actually physiologically does not allow you to come back down to a level that is going to be productive.
Nice.
That's why we got the pulse ox.
Yeah.
The Gottman said, get the pulse ox. We did it. This is something that, oh man, we're still working on in our house. I'll tell you that. It is so necessary to validate the other person's feelings. Why does this work? First of all, validation does not mean agreement. Okay. Agreement means, yeah, you're right. Validation means acknowledgement of somebody else's feelings or experience. And this absolutely helps lower their emotional defenses. It's really understanding the other person's experience, which, by the way, is easier if they're using I statements. I felt this way because I understood it to be this way. Then we get to go, oh, well, I think that if I experienced that way, I would be hurt by that too. That's a huge phrase. That is validation. I don't agree with how you're feeling, but now is not the time for me to insert why I don't agree with it. Now is the time for me to validate. And I promise you that if the first thing that you're able to do in conflict is validate the other person's feelings, conflict level of heat goes way down. And validation opens the door to more productive conversations, because when they go, oh, I feel heard, I feel seen. Not that they agree with me, just that they get where I'm coming from. That lowers defenses. Really, many, many more productive conversations come from being or feeling validated. And it's funny, I have this tattooed on my feet because that's my meditation. Get curious, not combative. I have from Alice in Wonderland, curiouser and curiouser tattooed on my feet. Why? Because it shifts your brain to questions. It promotes empathy. It's, what am I missing here? That was a really intense response from somebody. Man, I don't feel that way. I must be missing something. Can you help me understand what's going on for you right now? These are open-ended questions. They're brilliant. I'm not going to assume I have any idea because I don't. Ugh. Put this one away and pull it out anytime you need it. Can you help me understand what is going on with you right now, or what is happening for you right now? I want to understand. That's a really great way to de-escalate the rising tension. And you can see this happening. You see it like, oh, that person's getting, ooh, okay, whoa, I'm not really trying to go there. Can you help me understand what's going on? And that really lowers the defenses. What else do? We focus on solutions. When we're coming with our I statements, that really takes the blame away. I would like to find a solution. I'm not blaming you. Why does this work? The blame keeps you stuck. We get into this rumination, like, I blame you for da 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 da. But the solution focus moves the conversation forward. What can we do differently next time? Or can you think of ways that we can make this work for both of us? The mindset shift is what's important here. It's not who's right. We will fight till the death to prove who's right. This is the hill I will die on right now because I'm flooded, versus what can help both of us right now? How can we grow and learn from this? That points back to that mindset shift that we were talking about the way we are looking at conflict. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It really can be a growth moment for the individuals involved. And I think that that's a better way to go about life.
I agree. These are brilliant. I'm going to go into my takeaways because, first of all, I'm going to say all 5 of these strategies I think are fantastic. I'm going to point out that one of the things that hit me was validation is not agreement. Mm-hmm. That's so good to remember. I love that. But that's not my only takeaway, because today was great. I feel like we had so many good things.
Yeah.
But my second one is, and you just said it, conflict isn't bad. That's just the core of all of this. I think this is fantastic. The last one where you got me, self-regulation versus self-awareness, just breaking that down in the emotional intelligence is big for me. That's a big awareness. So thank you. That was a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was through the whole thing. I'm like, that's a takeaway. That's a takeaway. That's a takeaway. You know, we did go through the Gottman training. It is the hardest thing I have ever done, ever done. That's why when I was joking before, like we high five over little things. We were like, see, we could do that. Look at, we didn't even like get mad at that. And the ability to come back and be really proud of yourself for, oh, we made it through that one. Let's keep practicing. You know, we are on the same team. And I think that even if it's not an intimate relationship, one of my takeaways, it wasn't explicitly stated, although there's kind of this underlying, like, nobody really likes conflict. I don't think that the other person involved in the conflict that you're in wants to be in that same conflict. I think understanding that and that validation is huge. It's hard and it's huge. Is this person probably doesn't want to be fighting about this either. So what's our misunderstanding here? It probably has to do with a miscommunication. So back to the 4 agreements. Was I impeccable with my word? Am I assuming something? Did I not ask the right question? I'm trying to understand. I'm curious about your experience, because clearly we don't want to be here fighting about this bullshit. So I think that's a really big takeaway is just remember, and that's why it's tattooed on me, remember to be curious, because they don't want to be there just as much as I don't want to be there. So what happened and how do we move through it? Yeah.
That's a good one. I like that. Curiouser and curiouser. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's go into our questions.
I'll ask you first.
Okay.
What is an interaction you had with a stranger that you still think about from time to time?
So this is, okay, I'll tell you the story. I'm going to preface it with, it's kind of odd because it makes me look good, but it's also I shouldn't even just tee it up. I should just tell you. Okay. I was in the bathroom at work once, and this woman came in and she was obviously crying. And I had just come out of my restroom and I was washing my hands, and she was washing her hands. And I looked at her and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah. And she said something about, I can't remember how she told me, but someone had just died. And I just gave her a big hug, complete and utter stranger. And I just gave her a big hug. My hesitation to tell the story is like, I feel like it's bragging, like, oh, I showed up so fantastically. But the reason I remember it a lot is because I always think that's how I wish we would all show up for each other. Just like anytime someone needs someone, even if it's a stranger, I wish we would all show up that way. Yeah. Now, that being said, I wish I would always show up. There has been moments in my life when I didn't show up for people in that way, and they were strangers, and I regret that. So the point of the story is not, oh, I did something fantastic. The point of the story is I just wish we'd all show up like that for each other, because it was, and she really appreciated it. And she cried a little on my shoulder, and then she left, and I don't know who she was, and it didn't matter. It was just a stranger being there for somebody. And I think how many times I could have used a stranger being there for me, or I could have been there for another person. So that's just a moment that it does play in my head sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
For sure. My question for you is, what do you think are the questions that shouldn't be asked at a dinner party?
Do we have another episode? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you know, the standard political, religious, the really rude ones, like, when are you going to get married? Or when are you going to have kids? No, that type of thing. Across the board, don't do that. Because the really judgy, shitty ones. Gosh, what are some of the lesser known? Like, when are you going to get a better job? Or when are you going to find a boyfriend? Or why are you still single? Or
are you still with that guy?
Are you still with that guy? Don't you know that you have more inside of you than that job that you're in right now? When are you going to stop being an artist and get a real job or whatever?
The real job. We've heard the real job
Any
many
real
a time.
job
When are you going to get a real job?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many awful questions and usually it's family. What's worse is, okay, this was asked to me when I was pregnant at a dinner party. Are you going to circumcise? I'm sorry. What's your name again? Have we met before?
None your business. What?
Let me tell you, this is for everybody. Take note of this. It works every time for any awkward question. This is something that I came up with. It's one of those canned responses. And so it's this. I'm considering all options.
That's a good one.
Done. And then they want to tell you your thing, but you've already tuned out. So whatever their weird, awkward, strange thing is for any of those questions we were just talking about, your response can be, I'm considering all options. Even though you've considered all options and you've already decided.
None of your effing business.
Yeah. No.
I've considered all options and I'm not telling you what mine is.
So this is the forefront of conflict resolution. I'm not attempting to get into a conflict with your dumbass right now. I'm going to avoid it and not engage with you. And I don't mean avoid as in like, I'm afraid of this conversation. I mean like, you're an idiot and shut your mouth. And I'm considering all options. Thank you for your concern. Or whatever that looks like. Just use it for everything. I promise you it works.
I love it. That's great advice. Oh my gosh. Well, if this conversation sparks something in you, if it gave you a new way to see conflict or even just a little more space to breathe through it, we'd love to hear from you. Take one thing you heard today, just one, and try it out this week. Whether it's pausing before reacting, listening a little longer, or standing your ground with grace, see what shifts. If this episode helped you, share it with someone you care about. Your support helps this show reach more people who need it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. We've got so much more on conflict to unpack together. Until then, remember, conflict doesn't have to divide us. Sometimes it's the very thing that brings us closer.
Amen.
Amen. Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Write your lines with passion.